atmosphere of bookstore.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you.
I feel at home, surrounded by books, you know. This is my tea.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Nawal El Saadawi. I'm the Community Relations Manager for the NYU Bookstore. And it's with great honor and pleasure to be having Dr. Nawal El Saadawi here with us tonight. The evening is going to be moderated this evening by Dr. Julia Keefer, who is a professor, an author, and a health practitioner. Dr. Keefer will be moderating the evening. They'll be answering questions, and at the end, Dr. Saadawi will be signing books as well. The books are on 20% discount. I'm very nervous. The books are on 20% discount, and the registers are down the aisle as you exit the store. I see we have enough chairs, so I'm glad about that. Anyone in need of a restroom, there is a cafe halfway down the store on the right, and the restrooms are through the cafe. A quick note about the bookstore. This is part of a series of events that we do here, pretty much on a bi-weekly, monthly frequency. So I urge you to check our website, join us on Twitter, on Facebook, and befriend us in any way you can. It's a real pleasure to see all of you here. I'm extremely excited and happy to have you. Before we begin, I just want to welcome Dr. Keefer, who will say a few opening words as well.
Okay, sure. So welcome everyone. And
The other mic, it's much better.
okay. Okay, I want to thank Yal for this wonderful.
We're not getting any sound.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Yes.
Here we go.
Okay, cool. It's a good thing I used to do stand-up comedy. All right. So welcome everyone. This is a wonderful occasion tonight. We're very, very excited. I want to just begin by thanking our sponsors. This event would not be possible, first of all, without the NYU Bookstore. Yali Israeli and Daniel Chodos, a number of the people here have been wonderful at getting it organized. This is a two-part event. We had another event Tuesday night at the Kemmel Center. And these events, we brought Dr. Nawal El Saadawi here to NYU because of the New York Literary Club at McGee. So our sponsors are part of the Paul McGee Division. We have Dean Susan Kinsey, Dean Anna Kondulas, Professor Kathleen Hulley, Professor Ruth Dannon, and the Director of SCPS Events, Monica Estrada. In addition, we are indebted to all our literary club officers who made this event possible, some of whom are here this evening. And so that's the sponsorship. Now I want to get on to our guest of honor. In your seats, you have a detailed bio. That's our gift to you. In Arabic, Nawal means gift.
Yes.
Right?
Can you show me a copy of this?
And this, it will take me too long to read this entire bio, so that's your take-home present, along with her 14 English titles, which we have available here at a 20% discount. So I am going to give my personal introduction. I have taught Nawal's books for the past 20 years in the global literature class that I teach here at NYU. And I think this author deserves the Nobel Prize in Literature. For the depth and the breadth of her writing, she crosses every discipline, embraces every aspect of humanity. For her literary innovation, some of which we can't appreciate because it's in translation, but a lot of it we can because of her brilliant sense of drama, her innovative narrative sequencing and voice, her very rich imagery, the metaphor and personification that links to the natural world, and her use of colloquial and classical Arabic in very innovative ways. But most of all, I think she deserves the Nobel Prize because of her courage, her commitment, her honesty, her brilliance to write in the face of imprisonment during the Sadat regime, exile, censorship. She was last censored by the University of Al-Azhar in Cairo, and even the chains of love. So before we begin with her, I just want to share this quote from one of her autobiographies called Walking Through Fire. And I'm sure this is something we can all identify with. In my life, writing has remained my sole refuge. Nothing can replace the words I write on paper, can compensate me for them. For me, it is like breathing. Through writing, my self breathes, expresses itself. My pen breaks down the wall of isolation between my body and the world. I create words, but words create me. Words are all I possess, yet I am possessed by them. Between words and me, there is a love relationship built on equality. Neither of the two partners dominates the other. Writing has been the antithesis of death, and yet paradoxically the reason why I was put on the death list. Hearty welcome to
Okay. Thank you. Do you hear me? Thank you very much, Julia. About the Nobel Prize.
You'll refuse it like Jean-Paul Sartre.
Well, because usually I say, and this is a result of patriarchy and class oppression since slavery, that we do our work not because we love it, but either for reward or we are afraid of punishment. So this punishment rewarding moral system or system which corrupts education, in fact. Because in schools, we are either punished because we are naughty or disobedient or not obeying orders, or we have prizes because we are obedient and fit and conform to the system. So most of the best writers in the world never had prize, never.
That's true.
They never had a prize.
They deserved it.
They deserve it, of course, but they never have it. Because when you love your writing, then the only reward is to write, the ability to write. And also the feedback. When I receive a letter from readers, one of my readers, and they tell me, your book changed my life. This is my only reward. And it's very satisfying, more than a Nobel Prize. Number two, the Nobel Prize is a political prize. Political. It has nothing, or of course it has some literary dimension, but it's mainly political. And I remember in 1988, after I wrote The Fall of the Imam, one of my novels, which I like, some institutions nominated me for the Nobel Prize, and I was nominated for it. And usually, they ask the president of the country. They cannot give a Nobel. This is, you have to know that, yes.
Yeah.
They cannot, if you are especially in Egypt or in Africa, maybe an American writer nominated for the Nobel Prize will not take green light from Obama or Bush. But in our countries, they're a bit afraid to give a Nobel Prize to a dissident writer like me. So they need a green light from the president. You know that? Wow. It is very well known. And I was nominated for many, many international prizes and also international posts. But they should have a green light from the president. He never gave that. He never gave it. And I was so happy because, in fact, you gain a lot when your president is against you. You gain a lot. So that's about the Nobel Prize. But anyway, I am happy to be here. And I don't know what I'm going to do. They told me I'm going to sign books, yes.
Yeah. She will be signing books in a minute. So I wanted to ask you a little bit. You've written in every genre, in fiction, nonfiction, memoir, autobiography. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about the difference between fiction and nonfiction for you. And I wanted to just follow up with this quote from your book. Words should not seek to please, should not hide the wounds in our bodies, the shameful moments in our lives. Sometimes words shock us, give us pain, but they can provoke us to face ourselves, to question what we've accepted for thousands of years. Autobiography seeks to reveal the self, what is hidden inside. Just as it tries to see the other, my pen has been a scalpel which cuts through the outer skin, pushes the muscles aside, probes for the root of things. Autobiography has lifted me above the daily grind, to see my life emerge under a different light, in which the riches of the earth, the promises of heaven, have shrunk compared with these sheets of paper covered with my handwriting. As I write, I experience moments of thrill, of deep pleasure never experienced since I was a child.
Yes, who wrote that?
Oh.
This is very beautiful. You know, sometimes I forget what I write and people remind me. In fact, sometimes even I forget myself. And where they say, this is Nawal El Saadawi who wrote so and so, I think they are talking about somebody else, you know. But anyway, facts and fiction are one. Like the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, and the social, and the political. I am here with my physical body, mind, spirit, and with my Egyptian heritage, revolution, dissidence, creativity, and all. So we cannot split. This split comes from education, bad education. And most educational systems split and teach us how to split and separate. That's why creativity integrate the body to the mind, to the spirit, to the society, to the political. I'm a medical doctor, so why should I study religions or politics or economics or history or religions? But I cannot be a good doctor without knowing all that. So you cannot be anything except with this integration of knowledge. That's true knowledge. But fragmented knowledge does not give us real, true knowledge. So facts and fiction are one also. Dreams and reality are one. And sometimes you learn from fiction more than from facts. Because the imagination comes and it's very rich. Now I come to the most shameful moments in our life. When I teach creativity, I ask my students, when they write a paper, I tell them, write about the most shameful moment in your life. And I tell them, this is option. I don't oblige anybody to speak about your shameful moment. You are free. I am with freedom. I never tell my students to do a duty. But if writing becomes a duty, I hate it. I write it because I love it. It's not a duty. So I tell them, if you want to do it, do it. But it's very good to do it. So almost half the class will not write. They say, Either they say we don't have any shameful moment in our life. Amnesia. Creativity is related to remembering. The more you train your memory to remember your life, your childhood, your most shameful moments, the more you become creative. Because you get rid of fear of shame. Creative people have no secrets. I have no secrets in my life. I say, well, I divorced 3 husbands because of my writing. Yes, just to write what I want, I had to divorce 3 husbands. Because marriage is a prison. To me, the marriage system is a slave system. Women are inferior in all religions, in all marriage systems. So, but I married 3 times. Love, or fiction, something like that. So you have a relationship, you marry, and then you discover it's a prison. You don't have your freedom anymore. So you try. So I had to divorce 3 husbands. This is very rare. Just to keep my pen honest and to speak my mind. So you are fighting not the president or the state, you are fighting the family system because they are connected. They are under patriarchal class system, the state and the family. So creative people have no secrets. I tried to get rid of all my shame in my life. I have no secrets. That's why I'm not afraid. When you have secrets, you are afraid that people will know it. I know many of the women in my country, they are divorced, but they tell nobody because it's shameful. It's very shameful to be a divorced woman. It's very shameful if you do certain things, taboos or something. So when my students write about their most shameful moment in their life, they get rid of their fears. And then the second point, they read it. Not only write it, they read about it. So every one of them come, and some of them say, no, we can't read it. You only read it as our professor, but not to the class. But then at the end of the semester, all of them, they read their shame and they get rid of it. And this is the step to creativity. It's very important. I'll tell you something from my life. When I was a child, I was circumcised, like all women. 100% of women were circumcised in Egypt, and 100% of men are circumcised in Egypt and in many countries. And I was ashamed, though I have no role. They did it to me when I was a child, but I was ashamed to be incomplete. So I was hiding this fact. But then I started to write about it. And I remember I was in India, and I wrote about it, and then I cut it and throw it in the ocean. I couldn't publish it. But then I published it, and I put this piece as introduction, first chapter in my book, The Hidden Face of Eve, and I got rid of my fear. The opposite happened. I started to be proud that I got rid of this secret, and I overcome my shame. So creativity is very much related that you get rid of your secrets. Don't be ashamed of anything, because we are victims of the system. We don't do it to us. They do it to us, but we are ashamed because we are victims, you know. Okay, I hope. Yeah. Oh.
So speaking of shame, I want to talk about this book that you wrote, which is now one of my favorite books, The Circling Song. I'm sure most of you have already heard of Women at Point Zero and God Dies by the Nile. And this book is really innovative because of the excellent narrative voices and narrative sequencing, which at first perusal might seem like magical realism or postmodern, but Dr. Nawal El Saadawi has, perhaps because of her medical training, this way of getting inside and outside of death, disease, trauma, the body, and switching the narrative voices in an extremely creative way. Now, this book is the story of Hamida and Hamido, who are twins born from the same embryo. And you know, I mean, I'm sure all of you have studied or heard of Oedipus Rex. That's sort of part of the introduction to literature in the Western canon. I think this book should be the introduction to literature in the Arab canon because of the sibling rivalry between the brother and sister is the same as the psychological rivalry between the father and the son, that Oedipal transfer. And just with the change of a dot or a dash, you change gender in the Arabic language. And this begins with a nursery rhyme, I just start, every day and at whatever time I left the house, my gaze was met by a ring of little bodies, winding round and round, circling continuously before my eyes. The children's thin, high-pitched voices spiraled palpably up into the sky. The rhythmic orbit of their singing was synchronized with the movement of their bodies, fused into a single song, comprising one stanza which repeated itself in never-ending, unbroken cycle as they turned round and around and around. Now, I'm going to read some of this in English, and she's going to give us a certain translation in Arabic for the tone color. You think of like nursery rhymes. Hamida had a baby, she named him Abd al-Samad. She left him by the canal bed. The kite swooped down and snatched off his head. Shoo, shoo, away with you. Oh, kite, oh, monkey snout. Hamida had a baby. She named him Al-Samad. She left him by the canal bed. The kite swooped down and snatched off his head. Shoo, shoo, away with you. Okay, marhaba. Okay.
Well, you know, this was translated by who?
You tell me.
There is no name here. The circling song, there is no name. Who translated that? I don't remember. Her name is not here, or his name.
It's a Z book.
Ah, yes.
So it
yeah.
must be
Yes,
Sharif.
maybe, I don't
Yeah.
know. But
I think
anyway,
Sharif.
the name is not here. You know, translation, there is a problem. Oh my God, this will make me nervous. No, no,
Sorry,
no.
no need to be so close.
Yes, make it like that. There is a big problem with translation. Because when Julia read it, it's not my novel, it's not my Arabic, you know, even in the best translation. 30% because language is music. Language is music. It's voice. Can you translate music? No. Can you? Anybody can translate music? No. So when you write a book in its original, Arabic or English, and then you hear that translation, you become disappointed, frustrated, because it, at least in the best translation, it loses 30%. Even in the Quran. That's why when I studied the 3 holy books, you know, they are translated. Those who were Muslims here, who never read Arabic, because the Quran was in Arabic, the Old Testament in Hebrew. So if you don't know the original language of your religion, you will lose 30% of what God wanted to tell you. So usually, I say, God should be multilingual. This is justice for me. God must be above human being, and if he wants to send a book for people, because people have many languages, he should have the Arabic Quran. He should send another for the English Quran in English. Chinese Quran for the same with the Bible. So all the time I think, why didn't God translate or to send to the people the original? Because when you read any holy book, I compared the English Quran with the Arabic Quran. It's a world of difference. So this is also a question in relation the inability of God to translate his books. He needs human beings. He needs human beings for two things: to translate the books and to reinterpret them. So God should be more clear than human beings, and should know more language than human beings. Anyway, let me read that in Arabic. I don't have the Arabic language, but the Arabic translation. Anybody who had circling أغنية الأطفال الدائرية in Arabic? You don't have it. You have it?
With you?
Do-
I don't have it with me.
You have it, okay. But I will try. سأتكلم بالعربية الآن. You will translate? تعرفي عربي? Would you like to translate, or it's difficult? From the Arabic to English? Because I will speak in Arabic now. You will not know what I am saying. Would you like to come here? Okay. اللغة العربية لغة جميلة جدا جدا، لأن لها علاقة كبيرة بالموسيقى. لها علاقة كبيرة، هي تقترب قليلا من اللغة الفرنسية. اللغة الإنجليزية لغة عملية علمية. أنا درست الطب باللغة الإنجليزية، فاللغة الإنجليزية عملية محددة، لا تملك الموسيقى الموجودة في اللغات الأخرى القديمة، مثل اللغة العبرية أو اللغة العربية أو اللغة حتى الصينية. كل هذه اللغات القديمة لها موسيقى جميلة، ولذلك من الصعب جدا ترجمة اللغة العربية إلى أي لغة أخرى.
Dr. El Saadawi has just mentioned that the Arabic language is a very beautiful language. It is almost like a beautiful music or melody.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very definitive and precise language. Most of the ancient languages, such as Chinese or Hebrew or other very old languages, also have that beautiful nature to it, which sounds almost like music.
Mm-hmm. 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 And the English language is sign علمية. The English language is more scientific and practical, you know. Of course, to split between science and art is very artificial. I don't separate between art and science, like between physical and psychological, or between medicine and literature. There is no separation whatsoever. Wherever I go, people ask me, how come that you are a medical doctor and write fiction and novels? I say, what's the contradiction? It's natural. It's very natural. So you want me to translate? حميدة ولدت ولد سمته عبد الصمد، تركته على القناة. The kite. الحداية. الحداية الحدقة. No. The kite. That's the translation. This is not my novel. I didn't say طيارة ورق. It's the حدقة. You see the translation. Here she said the kite. It's not the kite. It is الحدقة. الحداية in English.
I think that's an owl, isn't it?
Yes.
It's an owl. Okay.
Can you see the difference between a kite?
Yeah, big difference.
So the owl came and snatched the head of the baby. It's a no. I will not. You see, that's the problem of translation.
However, what is preserved in translation are these incredible stories with fabulous characters, gripping dramatic situations. The figures of speech are still there, simile, metaphor, personification. What we lose is tone color, and that's why I wanted, and the problem with the tone color is that in a lot of Dr. Nawal El Saadawi's books, she plays with the difference between colloquial Egyptian and classical Arabic. And if I would make an analogy there, it would be like the difference between I would be talking with a very strict British accent, and terribly proper, or give me a bottle of booze and give it to me, So there's that rough street talk versus what you would hear more in a British or Bible. Now, what I wanted to discuss in terms of this, getting back to the Circling Song, because I really think this is a book that you should walk away with tonight as another Nawal or gift. You're aware of the honor killings, and this, if you can imagine that siblings are very close to each other, so this brother-sister relationship has an erotic twinge to it, and imagine the dilemma that occurs when Hamido is told by his father that he has to kill his sister, Hamida. Why? She was so poor that she stole food so she could eat. She stole a piece of candy. She was raped. She stole a piece of bread. She was raped. She stole a piece of meat. She was raped again. She got pregnant. She was no longer honorable. And because of that, she had to be killed by her brother. But instead of saying it in that very didactic, matter-of-fact way, Dr. El Saadawi weaves an incredibly creative narrative where she plays with this repetition of death inside and outside the body, with the disease, with the flashbacks, with the interior monologue, like James Joyce would or Virginia Woolf, but in a distinctively Arabic way, very innovative way. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little more about this book, the inspiration for this book, and you as a psychiatrist, because she's also a psychiatrist, what light you can shed on this rivalry between brother and sister.
Well, in fact, because I am a village woman, I came from a poor family, the family of my father. The family of my mother were bourgeois, but I was very much linked to the family of my father. I liked them. The family of my mother were snobbish and artificial and snobbish, like many people who have money, business, commercial, and all that. But the peasant people are original. Very original and down to earth, and they are honest. I don't know, there is something fascinating about poor peasant people, and especially my grandmother. So I was much related to poverty. I found many positive things in poor people, and especially in peasants. Of course, poverty has very bad things sometimes. It destroys the character, but sometimes it builds. It builds people, When you are poor, you can benefit from poverty. When you are rich, you can benefit from being rich also. It depends. But anyway, this story is a real story. Maybe it looks not like Firdaus, Woman at Pond Zero. It's a real story, a real woman whom I met her, like God dies by the Nile. It's a real story. Zakaya was my aunt. Zakaya, who killed the mayor, was my aunt. Hamida was even myself. Yes, Firdaus was even myself. There is no separation between a novel and autobiography. They are linked. A novel can, your life, no separation between the self and the other in writing. You write about yourself and you write about the other at the same moment. So Hamida has a part of me in her, like Firdaus in Woman at Point Zero. And I was dreaming, you know, that's why dreams and reality are one. I was dreaming of this novel when I was a child. Why? Because I heard, you know, the relationship between this novel, The Circular Song, and God Dies by the Nile, and Firdaus. They are connected. In fact, a writer writes one book in all her life, one book. It's about her life and the others whom I meet in my life. So when I was a child, I heard a story from my grandmother that there was a woman, maybe called Nafisa or Hamida or something. This Nafisa or Hamida or Zakiya came in every novel in a different way. In Woman at Point Zero, it came as a prostitute who killed a pimp. Here it came like a little girl pregnant outside marriage and her brother following her to kill her because it is blood only that washes dishonor. In God Dies by the Nile, it was Zakiya who killed the mayor. So I felt I am this girl. And even in the circling song, you remember that in the introduction, author's introduction or something, that I said I woke and I look to my face and I see Hamida. So many critics who are not Egyptian, no Egyptian critic wrote about any of my books. My books, I am not considered a writer, you know, because the people in charge of writing, the Writers' Union, the head of the Cultural Council, all people in high posts in relation to writing or theater or cinema or anything, they are appointed by Mubarak. So they never recognize me. My name is not among women writers in Egypt, you know. I never took any prize in Egypt. Many of the writers took Mubarak Prize, Sadat Prize, except me. I don't receive anything except punishment, either prison or exile or anything. But that's creativity. The more you are punished, the more you are creative. The more, if I am rewarded, I will suspect myself, you know, that I'm not going the right track, you know. So you see that myself is in the novel. You remember that when I look in my face, I don't know which part. It's at the beginning. Maybe you remember.
It's at the beginning and it's also at the end.
Yes.
In a way, Hamido and Hamida are two sides of the same coin. They're twins in the embryo. And then the ending ends like the beginning.
Exactly.
So that it has, you know, that Campbell myth, ordinary world, special world, that circle. It's much more creative than that, but it's meshed into the song. And here lies the difficulty of all endings, especially the ending of a true story, of a story as truthful as truth itself, and as exact in its finest details as exactitude itself. So that everything they're circling and circling, and the circle never breaks. But listen to this right at the end, and this is what she's talking about. Imagine these little kids going, "No, no, 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 no." I saw the small body come loose from the steadily revolving ring, breaking the regularity of its outline. It moved off like a gleaming speck or a star that has lost its eternal equilibrium, detached itself from the universe, and shot off at random, creating a trail of flame like a shooting star just before it is consumed in its own fire. And then she followed the movement. It wasn't the face of a boy, it wasn't the face of a girl. The face, oddly enough, was not strange to me. So familiar was it, in fact, that it left me.
Face.
And then my surprise turned to disbelief. My mind could not accept the sight before my eyes. It's not plausible that leaving home in the morning to go to work, on the way I should run head-on into another person only to discover that the face which met my gaze was none other than my own. I confess that my body shook, and I was seized by a violent panic which paralyzed my ability to think. Even so, I wondered, why should a person panic when he sees himself face to face? Was it the extreme eeriness of the situation in which I found myself? Or was it the almost overwhelming familiarity of the encounter? At such a moment, one finds everything becoming utterly confused. Contradictory or incompatible things come to resemble each other so closely that they become almost identical. Black becomes white, white turns to black, and the meaning of all this, one faces with open eyes the fact that one is blind.
Yes.
And so that's
It. That's the
why
story.
it's the Oedipus Rex of the Arab world. It's circling song.
Yeah, that's it.
What is the name of that title in English?
The circling song.
And in Arabic, it's al-ughniya al-da'iriyya, means the circling song. And this is life. Life is a circle. History is a circle. Everything is a circle. And we go in circles like that. But about the self and the other, creativity abolishes the line between the self and the other. And since I was a child, I was dreaming of this novel. You know, I found myself, because every time you hear a story, you feel that you are in it. You know, I don't know why. Every time I hear a girl was killed because she was pregnant outside marriage, it seems as if it's me. I don't know why. Maybe because of the fear. And this is related to religion. When we were children in school, I had my friends, my best friends in primary school was a Jewish girl and a Christian girl and myself. We were very, very close and friends, and in school we had to read our holy books. So we mixed together and we read the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran together, and we were laughing about the contradictions in all these three books. You know, we were laughing and saying, and also we felt fear. One of the fears that was embedded in my childhood, in my psyche, the story of Virgin Mary. The story of Virgin Mary, when she was sleeping, and then the Spirit of God, maybe you heard that before, came to her, and she became pregnant from the Spirit of God, and it came like that from the window. So I used to shut the window and the shutters, and to put paper in the shutters so that no little hole that the Spirit of God will come through it to me and make me pregnant when I was a child. I thought that if God made it once, he can do it twice. And to my astonishment, that the Jewish girl and the Christian girl had the same dream. And then I found that the whole class had the same dream and fear because of this story in religion. And as a Muslim, I had to believe in the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran. So all my life, I was afraid that some spirit will come and I will become pregnant, you know. So that's how the story came. The story come out of fears or dreams. You are yearning for, maybe I was yearning that God will come do it to me. Maybe, I don't know. But the fear and the hope will bring your story. Yeah.
So that brings us to another very interesting aspect of your life and work and what you've just talked about, which is empathy. Dr. Nawal El Saadawi, as you know, is a great humanitarian, and as a physician has worked in rural areas all over the world, worked for the United Nations, and she graduated from medical school in 1955. I know as a healthcare practitioner and also a novelist myself that it's very difficult to have the boundaries. Sometimes if you feel too much empathy for patients, it's hard to perform as a doctor. If you don't have enough empathy for characters as a novelist, it's hard to make them real. And I was fascinated also by this quote. If you're interested in her life as a doctor, I urge you to read Memoirs of a Woman Doctor and also Walking Through Fire. One is an autobiography and the other is a raw memoir. But now I want you to imagine a young girl in Egypt, one of the first female physicians in medical school in Cairo in the 1950s. And up until then, she's had a pen in her hand sometimes, hiding it, and she's had a hoe, you like that hoe, that killed the mayor in God Does by the Nile, and now she has a scalpel, and she's dissecting, as you have to do in medical school. I felt it with the tips of my fingers. Its surface was soft and convoluted, just like the rabbit's brain, which I dug out of its little skull on the table earlier. Was it possible that this was the brain of a human being? Could this piece of moist, tender flesh be the mighty human mind that had triumphed over nature and gone down into the bowels of the earth and up into the orbit with the sun and moon, which could split rocks and move mountains and extract enough fire from atoms to destroy the world? I seized the scalpel and cut the brain up into pieces, and then pieces into still more pieces. I looked and felt and probed and found nothing. Only a piece of soft flesh, which disintegrated under my fingers.
Yeah, yes, that's true. Any medical doctors here who dissected the body? Yes, you may tell us your feeling. What did you feel when you had the brain, human brain, and you cut it? Did you find anything? Nothing.
Oh, no.
But there is a lot of things in the nothing, you know. Everything in the nothing, you know. Like God, they say God everywhere and nowhere. The brain also. You find nothing, but it's full of many things.
So can you tell us a little bit what it felt like to be, you treated a lot of patients with tuberculosis, and I like this, and this comes across in the translation. The night was cold and desolate, the darkness dead and still. The great hospital with its lighted windows crouched in the dark like a wild hyena. The patient's groans and racking coughs tore at the curtains of the night. I stood alone at the window of my room, staring at the little white flower opening in the vase beside me. As I touched it, I shuddered, as if it was a corpse touching the living thing for the first time. I brought it close to my face and inhaled its perfume, feeling like a condemned prisoner pressing his nose against the iron bars of his cell to breathe in the fragrance of life. I put my hand up to my neck, and my fingers brushed the metal arms of the stethoscope, encircling my neck like a hangman's noose. The white coat hung round my shoulders, reeking of ether, disinfectant, and iodine.
Yes, I think all of you, we feel that we are in a prison without bars. You know, for me, when I went to prison under Sadat, I saw the bars around me, so I knew that I am in prison. But we are always in a prison. There is always barriers that prevent us from being ourselves. School, education is a prison, because the educational system treat us or train us to obey and to behave well. Maybe you know this proverb: well-behaved people, men or women, never make history. If you behave well, you never make history. But you have to behave very badly. That's why I teach creativity and dissidence. A good education means disobedience, dissatisfaction with injustice. So we are in a prison in schools, in marriage. Marriage is another prison, you know. Poverty is another prison. Poverty, when you are poor, you are in a prison. You cannot pay a ticket to the United States. You cannot come here. You cannot go anywhere. So when we break the bars, and the invisible bars are more dangerous than the visible. Because when you see the bars, you know you are in prison, you fight back. But when you are in a prison that you don't see the bars, you do not fight back because you think you are free. You are not free. And that's postmodern prison. That's postmodern prison. We are prisoners of language.
We have time for questions?
Of language, yes. And you asked me about something.
With this one, about the
Okay,
nature?
it's okay.
Well, I think we were going to take some questions from
Okay.
the audience.
Mhm.
Know where I can purchase your books in Arabic, actually.
How to purchase my books in Arabic.
Because I looked for them in Egypt.
They are everywhere. Yes, everywhere, because all my books were reprinted by my publisher. 47 books were reprinted in 2007. The end of 2006, my publisher in Cairo, Madbouli, he republished and reprinted all the 47 books, including the play that
God Resides at the Summit
yes,
meeting,
that he
which
burned.
that's under the dramatic literature of Nawal El Saadawi.
Yes.
And if there's any professors here, I heartily recommend it's a one-act play that's absolutely fabulous with God and Saint and Mohammed, Netanyahu, Clinton, and you can act it out in your class, and you can learn all about religion and everything. It's the Saturday Night Live of Noel. Dramatic literature.
So you can find my books everywhere in Cairo, except the one that was burnt, God Resigns at the Summit meeting, and The Fall of the Imam. Those two books were destroyed by the publisher, and he died after that because he paid a lot of money to publish, and then he was ordered by the police to destroy them. But you can find them in any Arab country also. And also in some bookshops here.
Right. And online.
Arabic in Brooklyn, Bethlehem, and NYU, 39 and 50. A lot of
Do you have any other questions?
That's very interesting. I would like to have this.
I could give you a.
Can you give me? Yeah.
Okay, the question is
Yes, yeah.
about female sexual mutilation. What is the status of it now, and exactly what's happening right now with it?
Well, I usually speak about female genital mutilation and male genital mutilation. They are connected, but everybody is silent about male cutting. I am against cutting of children for any reason, except for disease, for medical reason. But since slavery, children were cut, male and female, for religious reasons, and religion is political. We cannot, holy books are political books. They deal with politics, economics, sexuality. So this whole cutting of children, we have to fight against with all our effort to save children, because men become violent when they are circumcised. Yes, because they are circumcised when they are 1 week old. So the child is just only 7 days, and then he's cut, and he never forgets the shock and the pain, and then he becomes aggressive. When you are beaten when you are a child, when some people do something to you harmful, aggressive, violent, you become violent when you are older. And you can study the history of Hitler or Mubarak or even Obama or George Bush. You will find a wound from childhood. The feeling of being a victim a victim of the knife to cut your body when you are child. And they think that child is not aware or will forget. No, it's in the head, the wound in the head, more than in the genital organs. And if we want to, one of the ways to eradicate war and violence is to stop cutting children, male and female. But nobody speaks about male genital mutilation at all. And it's a crime, but it's also a taboo. Because when I started to write against male circumcision and male cutting, I was punished severely, more than when I spoke about female cutting. But this has many religious and political reasons. Now in Egypt, it is 97% of girls are cut. 97, yes. It increased under Sadat and Mubarak. Veiling also, there is a connection. 97% in Egypt.
Muslim.
Christian
No, it's just Muslim. It means Muslim.
What is it?
It's Muslim.
Christians and Muslims. No. Male and female circumcision, cutting children, male and female in Egypt, done by Christians and Muslims. Both. It has nothing to do with religion. We inherited that, and it's not African. It's not related to the black race, because Alice Walker wrote a book, and I disagree totally with her. She related female cutting to Africa. Many people think that women are circumcised, or men, from slavery from Africa, which is not true. Cutting of children were in every country. It is related to patriarchy and class, to slavery, to the domination of men and domination of the people who have the wealth and the money. It was done in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, in the United, for different reasons. But it has nothing to do with the black race at all. It is political and economic. It has nothing to do with the color. This is also some of the racist misunderstanding. And research is political. You make a research and you bring results that has nothing to do with reality, you know. It's political. But we, in Egypt, female genital mutilation, the rate of female incidents increased under Sadat and Mubarak, like veiling. When I was a medical student during the 50s, before Sadat, before Mubarak, there was not a single veiled student in the faculty of medicine, in the college, in the medical college. Under Sadat, it became 70% of the students, female students in the medical college, veiled and circumcised. Veiling and circumcision go hand in hand. The family that veil women circumcise them. Why? Because it's related to the revival of religions, Christianity and Islam in Egypt, the increasing fundamentalist fanatic groups in Egypt, encouraged by Sadat and Mubarak and Reagan and George Bush and Obama. The connection here, usually I summarize by saying George Bush and Osama bin Laden are twins. They are twins. Neocolonialism and religious fundamentalism are two faces of the same coin. They use God to justify injustices. And women because women are inferior in all religions. So whenever you have revival of Islam or Christianity or Judaism, women suffer. They are veiled, circumcised, driven out of labor. Here you have inequality. So it is all political and related to class and patriarchy.
Good evening. Could you please comment on the connection between this pharmaceutical complex, clinical trials, HIV, capitalism, and the feminization of HIV among women?
Can you tell me what he said? I didn't hear. What did he say?
Can you give us a little more focus to that question?
Can you come here? Please come here. Yes.
Hi.
No, because the mic. Come here. Come, sit here.
Hi. My name is Habiba.
Yeah, اسمك إيه؟
شوي.
Khadija?
Habiba.
Habiba. You are from what country?
Sierra Leone and Lebanon.
Okay.
Vous parlez le français aussi?
Hello. Speak without the mic. The mic is very bad. Yeah. You will not hear? Okay. So let it be a little bit away from your mouth. Yes. Mhm.
Clear?
Okay.
Okay. I was listening to a speech you gave. I think it was at the World Forum
World Social Forum?
with Arundhati Roy. She was speaking. You also spoke, and someone from Afghanistan.
In Port Alegre or where?
Mumbai.
Mumbai. Yes.
And you were talking about HIV clinical trials.
HIV?
Yeah, AIDS.
AIDS.
Africa and pharmaceuticals.
HIV, yes, and AIDS in Africa,
But you
yes.
didn't explain what the
Connection
was. Yeah.
between AIDS and what?
And
Capitalism.
and capitalism and pharmaceutical trials.
Yes. There is a wonderful book. Yes, there is a very good book called Emerging Viruses. Emerging Viruses. I learned a lot from this book. In fact, I was in Norway, in Oslo, maybe 10 years ago or so, and a friend of mine gave me this book as a present. She told me, "Did you read this book?" I told her, "No." She said, "Read it." So I read it, and I discovered many. Of course, I know that capitalism and imperialism and all that, and the whole class system is related to patriarchy. I never separate between patriarchal oppression and capitalism or imperialism or class oppression. They are one in history. But this book illuminated me to the connection between AIDS. You know AIDS, the disease of AIDS in Africa, and it raised a great deal after some American pharmaceutical companies went to Africa and vaccinated people. So they used the African people as guinea pigs to test their new products, their new pharmaceutical vaccines. And this made the virus, HIV, flourish. Because you don't know, sometimes this is a byproduct. You do a research, and you are doing a research to do something, and then some virus, there is a revival of some of the dormant viruses. So this happened. So AIDS in Africa was the result of the testing and the research of American and European pharmaceutical companies that created the disease. And the first ladies played a role, and the queens in Africa and in Egypt. Suzanne Mubarak, she was making a big propaganda for American pharmaceutical companies, vaccines, for whooping cough or some diseases, etc. And they created viruses, unknown viruses in Egypt. Now we have 50% of the young people. One of them was very near to me, died of hepatitis because of these new viruses. We don't know. There are many diseases in Egypt affecting the liver or the kidney of young people and children in Egypt because of this research. And the propaganda for the pharmaceutical American companies in Egypt and in Africa was done by the first ladies because they received a lot of money. Suzanne Mubarak and his two sons, now we discovered that they transferred from Egypt $60 billion out of Egypt. This is equal to the debt of Egypt. And they, apart from the other ministers and the men who were surrounding the regime that transferred billions of dollars outside of Egypt. And now the Egyptian revolution discovered all that. And they are trying to freeze this money and to bring it back to Egypt. So this is the connection between some of the killing diseases like AIDS and capitalism, profit of companies in US or in Europe. And we have to be aware of that.
I would love it if you would speak just a little bit about your personal experience recently in Cairo. I've seen images of you
About
protesting,
what?
but I unfortunately have not read any reflections or been to any of the other talks, so I'd greatly appreciate if you just speak about your personal experience.
So your personal experience in Tahrir Square during the recent revolution, just, personally, every day going in the tent, or
Yes.
what you felt like at your age with all the young people, and what you...
Well, I like to speak about that. It's so... In fact, I was punished by the regime, but also I was respected by the young people. Many of the people who read my books, and they love it, like Julia and others, are young people who made the revolution. I am so proud that my books, though nobody confessed that in Egypt, that my books played a role in the revolution. And many of the people who made the revolution used to come to my home before the revolution from all over Egypt and Arab countries and even foreign countries. They come to my home and they talk about my books and how my books changed their life. And they became more dissident, more creative, more revolutionary. So those young men and women in Egypt used to come to my home. And even they formed what they called Nawal El Saadawi Forum. And they come to my home the first Wednesday of every month to discuss with me, to meet me once a month. Yes, which is very, very, for me, it is illuminating. And I become young, because when I am with young people, I become young, of course. And that's why I'm young. I feel young. I am 80, I am 80. But when you are surrounded by young people, you feel young. So it was natural that I was in the revolution from the first day till the end, day and night. Of course, I didn't sleep there. It was very difficult, but I used to leave midnight. I was about to be knocked by a horse. Mubarak sent horses, men, gangs on horses and camels to kill us with shots. I was, on my head there were bullets running like that. I was about to be knocked by a horse. I used to go to my home midnight. I didn't find a taxi or anything. So the young people accompanied me, or sometimes I go home on a motorcycle. It's almost 50 years I haven't been on a motorcycle. But what happened, what was really funny, that one night, the young man who was driving the motorcycle was in front of me, and another young man volunteered to come and sit behind me to hug me, so I will not. So I was like a sandwich between two young men whom I don't know. I am hugging the first one, and the one behind me hugging me. Incident, stories. I am writing a new novel.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear. That's exactly what we want to hear. Tell us about it.
In fact, I started a novel, and I was almost in the middle of a novel when the revolution came. So when I lived those 18 days and more in Tahrir Square, I went back to my novel to continue. I couldn't. I felt this is Nawal of the past. Now the revolution changed me. I became another person. The spirit of revolution made me more younger, more revolutionary, more hopeful. So my novel looked as if it is written by somebody very old and cold and all that. So I just left it, and I am starting now a new novel.
Do you have a title so we can look for it?
No, we're not
don't know
yet.
that. Okay.
The title comes at the end.
Oh, okay.
It's in the incubation period now, so it's working, you know.
Okay, and with that, we're going to, you want one more question? Okay.
Thank you. There's so much I would love to ask you, but since we're on this subject, I'll just ask if you can give us any of your thoughts on the prospects for women's rights and opportunities in Egypt now, coming out of the whole change that's going on there.
Very
Thank
good
you.
question, and I'll make it very short. In fact, we were very disappointed when we won the revolution, and then the military established a committee to change the constitution, and it was all old men, no young men, and no women. So we went home and we re-established the Egyptian Women Union. Without unity, you cannot win. Collective resistance is important. So we re-established the Egyptian Women Union. More than 40% are men, young men. Yes, and they were so enthusiastic. So, yeah, and that's also the revolution. The revolution create this harmony, dissolve all inequalities between people or discrimination. In Tahrir Square, men and women were one. Christians and Muslims were one. All these divisions disappeared. We became one. So the young men were more enthusiastic to re-establish the Egyptian Women Union than the women. So this was great. In fact, the Egyptian Women Union, we tried to establish several times under Sadat and under Mubarak, and they banned it because they know the unity of women, and they divided us. Now we have fragmented women movement in Egypt, fragmented. But now we are reuniting because unity is power, and we have to do it. And I am very hopeful that tomorrow will be better than today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. This is Yael's favorite quote, so I'm just going to do this. This is from the memoirs of the women's prison. We haven't talked a lot about that book, but I urge you to get that book. Writing is my life. There is no power in the world that can strip my writings from me. They have been printed and published. They have thousands, perhaps millions of readers in the Arab world and across the globe. Since childhood, a dream has inhabited my imagination. I write words and people read them. Today, tomorrow, the day after. When does not matter, for people will read them. Those are the people who make a homeland. And my homeland has become you people.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for Dr. Julia Keefer, for Dr. Nawal El Saadawi. Really the bottom of my heart, from the NYU Bookstore at New York University, and I think from all of New York City, if I can dare to say. It's been a really, really insightful and inspiring evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
We're going to get some of the books signing underway, and thank you again for coming. Have a good evening.